In today's junk journal with me, I'm going to be working on the prompt of antique for junk journal January, and I'm going to be using some antique papers. So I have a range of different things, including a 1915 book. So you can see some larger papers for it there that I have on my desk, and I do end up bringing out the entire book. Now, before you panic and gasp and wonder why I'm using something from 1915, I promise you, when I found this in a random charity shop a good few years ago, the book was quite literally falling apart. It had no cover, so you'll see when I bring it out, it has no cover on it, and the paper is, I want to say, almost a bit like really thin newspaper, so it's not very good in terms of like binding into pages. However, it's really great for collage material, so I like to use it on different backgrounds. And so yeah, you just have to be careful when you use it because it's quite fragile, but I really love how aged the paper is and the different tones you can get from it. It's also cool to see the different writing and fonts and things. So it's got a bunch of like old like adverts and things, so there's all really cool things within it that I can use within my journals. So I decided just to pick out a few different bits. I ended up cutting some text from it to create my page. Now I did end up covering up this piece that I'm adding in here because I had like another idea. Like I was kind of just thinking maybe I can just use this as a base and collage with it and see where that goes. So that's how I kind of started it. I was almost just like, okay, so the prompt of antique means I'm going to use like this certain supply. Then I just kind of went from there, and I really like the way that works with prompts sometimes, because it truly is just that like kickstart to get you going and to just create. And so I was just having fun with the different papers that I was using in terms of this collage piece. And as you'll have seen earlier on, I even tipped in an extra piece because I wanted something that was a bit plainer on the right hand side, but I also didn't want to cover up what I had on there because I attached an extra bit of paper when I had assembled the journal, but I didn't want to cover it up for this, so I decided, well, let's just add a tip in and create another sheet within the journal, another page, and then I can, come to that with something different when I don't want to do a page that's maybe all about like collage everywhere, if you know what I mean. Like I knew I wanted to just do a lot of collage everywhere here, so that's kind of why I added in that extra page. And I think the tone of that paper really works well to sort of complement, you can see here, the aged effect and how it's, quite literally falling apart. So I decided to pick out one of the adverts here with some of the text and use that within my page. So I was just cutting out different bits and pieces, so I didn't use everything that I cut out, as you'll see as I go through this video, but I was just almost being a bit like a magpie when I got it out and just thought, right, what can I cut out that I might want to use on my page, and then I'll take it to the journal page itself and then sort of go from there and see what I want to use on the page itself. I really enjoyed the process of assembling the page this way. I think it ended up giving a really like scrappy feel, which I'm really liking within this particular journal. I don't know if it's because of the size of the journal I'm working in and everything just feels full without me having to like work on every inch of the page. I think just the way that everything balances out is feeling really nice within this journal. So I don't know, maybe I might work in more of these tiny passport size journals because it is slightly smaller than the usual A6 that I really like to work in anyway. Like I know I like to work in smaller journals. I do struggle a little bit with like A5 journals and ones that are a bit larger. Like I just tend to gravitate towards like smaller things. I don't know if it's because of like the details or just it's like quicker to make the pages. Like I'm not spending like loads of time within this journal, but at the same time I feel like what I am making in it, I'm just enjoying the process of, and that's kind of the most important thing I think when it comes to especially a challenge like this, is to enjoy the process of like showing up to the journal each day and playing around with the different prompts. And so for this one of antique, it was really fun to work with like choosing out a specific like material to play with and see what I could create within my journal. So to add some extra text to this page, because I knew I wanted to fill in that gap on the brown paper there on the left hand side, I decided to come in just with some writing with a brown fine liner, and I wanted something that was a little bit like a longer quote because I had that text that I had cut out from the old book, and so it made more sense to almost in like contrasting terms have like more writing on the left hand side. That way then it kind of feels like the page still goes together. And I ended up turning the journal sideways and doing the text along the length of the journal, and I just really like the effect that that gives. I think that's an interesting way to add text to your journal sometimes, even in just your own like regular old handwriting, just to like do it at a different angle, whether it's like this or whether it's diagonal. It just visually looks different on your page, and so I'm just copying out a Morgan Harper Nichols quote. I love her work, so I definitely recommend checking her out if you haven't seen her work already. I use loads of her quotes in all of my different journal pages. I think probably every single one of my recent journals, there's probably at least one of her quotes because I just really love them. But yeah, that is my page for the prompt of antique. Let me know what you've created for this prompt. I think it was a really fun one to include because it can lead to so many different things, especially with how broad like antique can be. Like, were you doing some distress ink stuff maybe? That's the classic thing that comes to mind. Or using old postcards, using old ephemera. There's so many different options, and we all love a bit of antique and vintage within our junk journals. So thank you as always for joining me for this journal with me, and I will see you in the next one.